Respected federal judge Samira Hakim has built her life around the justice system she served for 25 years. In the affluent suburb of Fairview Hills, everything changes when a routine traffic stop leads to her handcuffed humiliation, captured on a viral video that exposes how quickly power dissolves when wrapped in a hijab. As ethics committees gather and allies offer political solutions, Samira must decide if true justice requires stepping beyond the black robe that defined her, or watching silently as nothing changes. Part 1. The Encounter. Judge Samira Hakim had spent 25 years upholding justice from the bench, but it took Officer Brennan only 3 minutes to see her as just another Middle Eastern woman in a car. Driving home from delivering a keynote address at Westbridge University's Constitutional Law Symposium, Samira was just 2 blocks from her house in affluent Fairview Hills when blue lights flashed in her rearview mirror. She wasn't speeding, she'd signaled at every turn. She pulled over carefully, lowered her window and placed her hands visibly on the steering wheel, a habit born from experience. A white officer approached, young, broad-shouldered, with mirrored sunglasses despite the dimming light. "License and registration," he said flatly. "Of course," Samira replied in her measured courtroom voice. "May I ask what I'm being stopped for?" "You failed to signal back there." She was certain she had signaled. "I believe I did signal, but I'll retrieve my documents." She handed over her license and registration, adding, "I'm Judge Samira Hakim. I serve on the federal bench. I'm just returning from delivering a lecture at Westbridge." He barely glanced at her ID before taking it back to his cruiser without acknowledgement. 5 minutes passed, then 10. When he returned, his posture had changed, more rigid, aggressive. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered. "Excuse me?" "Step out of the car now," he repeated, hand moving to his holster. "Officer, I don't understand. Is there a reason you're asking me to exit my vehicle?" "You're being uncooperative." "Step out now!" This wasn't about a turn signal. This was about something else entirely. "I've been fully cooperative, Officer Brennan. I've provided my identification, which clearly states I'm a federal judge. Last warning. Exit the vehicle or I'll remove you myself." Neighbors had begun to notice. A couple walking their dog paused across the street. A teenage boy on a bicycle had stopped, phone already recording. Slowly, Samira opened her door. Her heels touched the pavement as she stood, keeping her hands visible. "Turn around," he ordered. She complied, feeling cold metal bite into her wrists as he secured the handcuffs. "This is ridiculous," she said, her judicial composure fraying. "I've done nothing wrong." "You're resisting arrest," Brennan stated. The teenage boy had moved closer, phone still recording. "You okay, ma'am?" "Stay back," Brennan barked. "Please," Samira said to the boy, "just record. Don't intervene." Judge Samira Hakim, who had sentenced murderers and corrupt politicians, stood humiliated on a public sidewalk, watching her neighbors watch her. Part 2. The response backup arrived 12 minutes later. Sergeant Diana Chen took in the scene. Handcuffed woman in professional attire, agitated crowd, Officer Brennan with his hand near his weapon. "What's the situation?" Chen asked. Subject was uncooperative during a routine traffic stop. Chen glanced at Samira. "Your name, ma'am?" "Judge Samira Hakim, United States District Court, Eastern District," she replied evenly. Chen's eyebrows rose. "You're a federal judge?" "Yes." "I was attempting to explain that to Officer Brennan when he decided I was being uncooperative." Chen found Samira's judicial badge in her car. "Officer Brennan, uncuff her. Now." "Sergeant, she was..." "Now, Brennan." As Brennan removed the handcuffs, Samira rubbed her wrists where the metal had dug into her skin. "Judge Hakim, I sincerely apologize for this incident," Chen said loudly. "This is not how the Fairview Police Department conducts itself." "And yet," Samira replied, equally audible, "here we are." Captain David Harrison arrived and approached Samira. "Judge Hakim, I want to personally assure you that we will be conducting a thorough..." "Save it, David," Samira cut him off. "We both know what happened here. Your officer saw a woman in a hijab and decided she was suspicious. I'd like to invite you to come to the station to file a formal complaint," Harrison said. "No," Samira stated firmly. "I will be contacting the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division tomorrow morning." By dawn, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The video, captured by young Jamal Williams, had gone viral overnight. 3 million views and climbing. Her colleague, Judge Martin Okonkwo, had texted, Emergency meeting of the judges, 9:30 a.m. And then there were the media requests. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, Al Jazeera, the New York Times, the Washington Post. Her doorbell rang. Her friend Rashida Khan. "Have you decided what you're going to do?" "I haven't slept enough to make that decision," Samira admitted. More neighbors arrived, organizing a community response. Her clerk called to inform her that a defendant in her current case, a police corruption trial, had already filed a motion questioning her impartiality. The governor called personally. "I've directed the state attorney general to open an investigation." "I appreciate that," Samira replied. "But this isn't about one officer or one department. It's about systemic issues." As a judge, she had always believed in the system's capacity for justice. But last night, she had been outside the system, vulnerable, disbelieved, just another Muslim woman to be treated with suspicion. Part 3. The Decision. Layla Hakim burst through the front door that evening, having flown in from law school. "I told you not to come," Samira said, embracing her daughter. "And I told you I'm not great at following instructions," Layla replied. In the kitchen, Samira outlined her options. Stay silent and let institutions handle it. Speak about her personal experience while avoiding systemic critiques, or use this unwanted platform to address bigger issues, knowing it could affect her judicial career. "You've spent your whole career believing you could change the system from the inside," Layla observed. "But now you have a choice. If I speak too forcefully, I could lose my effectiveness on the bench," Samira said quietly. "Maybe. Or maybe you'd gain a different kind of power." News broke that Officer Brennan had prior complaints of religious discrimination. All 3 had been dismissed after internal review. Needing air, Samira walked to the neighborhood park. There she encountered Jamal Williams, the teenager who'd filmed the incident. "I wanted to apologize for posting that video without asking," he said. "You have nothing to apologize for," Samira assured him. "People keep asking me for interviews. I didn't know what to say." "If you do speak, tell the truth as you saw it." "What about you?" he asked. "Are you going to speak up?" "I'm still deciding. My grandmother says silence never protected anybody." With those words, something shifted inside Samira. She had spent her career working within the system, believing her presence on the bench was itself a statement. But perhaps there were moments when presence wasn't enough. Back home, she gathered everyone in her living room. "Tomorrow morning, I will hold a press conference. I will speak not just as Judge Hakim, but as Samira, a Muslim American woman who experienced what too many others have experienced without the protection of a title." "What about your position on the bench?" Rashida asked. "Could there be consequences?" "Almost certainly," Samira acknowledged. "But I took an oath to uphold justice, not just to enforce the law." The next morning she stepped through the courthouse doors and faced the assembled press. 6 colleagues stood behind her in solidarity. "For 25 years I have served as a federal judge," she began. 2 nights ago, none of that mattered. I was just another Muslim woman being ordered out of her car, being handcuffed on a public sidewalk, being treated as inherently suspicious despite my identification, despite my cooperation, despite my position." Her voice remained steady, neither rising in anger nor breaking with emotion. "I am not here to vilify an individual officer or a single police department. I am here because what happened to me happens to countless others who don't have the protection of a judicial robe, who don't have neighbors recording on their phones, who don't have the institutional power to ensure their complaints are heard." She continued with measured certainty. "There is a fundamental disconnect in our society. We can elevate individuals from marginalized communities to positions of authority, and yet still treat them as other when they step outside the contexts that legitimize them." After her statement, she took carefully selected questions. As planned, she turned to leave, climbing the courthouse steps flanked by her colleagues and daughter. But at the top, she paused and turned back. In an unscripted moment that would be replayed on news programs for days, she raised her wrists, where faint marks from the handcuffs were still visible, and said simply, "Justice cannot be blind to injustice, especially when it wears a badge." Part 4. The Reckoning. 3 weeks later, Officer Brennan arrived at Samira's chambers, not in uniform but in civilian clothes that somehow made him look smaller, less certain. "I want to apologize," he said. "What I did that night was wrong." "May I ask what prompted this apology?" Samira asked. My sister's been calling me every day since it happened. She converted to Islam 5 years ago. Wears hijab now. She kept asking how I'd feel if someone treated her the way I treated you. And what did you tell her? That I'd want to kill the guy, but it took me a while to make the connection. Do you know what the hardest part was for me? Samira asked. It wasn't the handcuffs or the humiliation. It was the realization that nothing I had accomplished, none of it mattered in that moment. Before she could continue, her phone buzzed with a text alerting her to turn on the news. Governor Watkins was announcing the establishment of a commission on equitable policing. I'm pleased to announce that Judge Samira Hakim has agreed to chair this commission upon completion of her current judicial term. Samira and Layla exchanged stunned looks. It's a political solution, Layla observed. She gets credit for addressing police bias, you get a soft landing, and the judiciary doesn't have to publicly censure one of its most respected members. And genuine reform might actually happen in the process. The governor's announcement was a clear signal. The ethics committee was likely to force Samira off the bench. Her statement had crossed a line that the system couldn't tolerate. But in that crossing, she had found a new purpose. I think, she said finally, turning to her daughter, that a judge is not the only thing I can be. And what else can you be? Samira smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes for the first time in weeks. An advocate, a voice, a force for the change I've always believed in. When I was little, Layla reflected, I always thought the black robe made you powerful. I'm just now realizing how much more powerful you might be without it. Judge Hakim had spent 25 years upholding justice from the bench. Now Samira would pursue it from somewhere new, not as a neutral arbiter bound by precedent, but as a woman who had experienced injustice firsthand and was determined to transform that experience into meaningful change. The system that had failed her would now have to reckon with her voice outside its careful constraints, and that voice, she knew, would be impossible to silence. Enjoying our stories? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of our upcoming content.